And just like that, I
Hello.
appear.
Look at us. Why are we always twinning like this?
I have no clue. I feel like a little scallywag right now. A little
Girl,
scallywag action going on.
listen, mine is up here too.
Hi,
How was your
sis.
week? How was your week?
It's been a week. It's been a week. But I'm glowing right now. So,
Yes.
yes.
Nice.
How's your week been?
It's been a week, but it's Friday, so I am not complaining one bit. I am super excited.
Okay.
We have some great stuff coming up tonight, guys.
I'm excited.
Wait, hold on. I don't see anybody dropping masks. I don't see anyone dropping masks.
Let me put some masks.
Drop your mask, guys.
Trying to get us sick. Like, I don't understand. Drop your mask before you come into this chat.
Quarantine and lime. You know how we do it every Friday night. Drop your mask.
Look, still nobody dropping masks. I'm the only one who dropping masks. Yeah. Yeah, so okay, so first off, before we even get into lime, sis, what's in your cup?
So because tonight we are actually talking about religion and spirituality, I kind of left the drink alone tonight. You know, we had the mocktail when we discussed this topic, so I kind of left it alone because, you know, we just got to make sure, you know, we up here, we ready. You got to be ready for these gems, man.
Honestly though, I agree, but I'm a differ though, because there's nothing wrong with still having mocktails. You could always have a nice little glass of fresh pineapples. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, bartender.
I came prepared. So if you don't have something in your cup, best believe I have something in my own cup, which is fresh pineapples tonight.
Tell us about this pineapple concoction you have going on right here.
Okay, guys. So literally, basically, since we have all of this corona and COVID and stuff going on, pineapples are essential. A lot of people do not know pineapples actually have a lot more vitamin C than oranges. So many people are quick to go and grab orange juice or oranges when you could get a nice pineapple. We are all West Indian, so it's nice and tropical. If you want to add a little spice to it, you don't want to drink, but you still want to have some spice, make a chow out of it. Guys, if you don't know what pineapple chow is, get your life.
That actually sounds good. That sounds really good right now.
Yeah, so that's what's inside of my cup tonight, guys.
Nice. Well, guys, we are recapping our religion and spirituality episode from season 2 tonight with Mr. Oba L. I mentioned it before and I will mention it again. Please get your notepad and your pen ready. Gems are always dropped with Mr. Oba L. So please get ready to take some notes. We definitely taking it up a notch and talking about spirituality tonight. We really want to kind of just check in with everyone's mental, but also check in with everybody spiritually and see how you guys are doing. So that is the goal for tonight's show. Like I said, have that pen and paper ready because I'm ready. I'm taking my notes too.
Well, I'm going to catch all you later. I'm going to actually hop on the D-Lime chat and throw you all some questions, and I'll see you there.
See you then, sis.
All right. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye. So we are getting ready to bring in Mr. Oba L. Hello, Mr. Oba L.
Hey, Ayschel, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Where did Ra go?
Ra actually hopped off. She hopped off, but she'll be in the chat.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So first and foremost, how are you doing, especially with everything going on right now? How are you doing?
Giving thanks to the question and giving thanks to life too. You know, we hadn't had a direct impact with the COVID based on our jobs and everything. So I had a couple of family members who passed away in Jersey. But you know, given thanks that, you know, but this particular wave we haven't, you know, felt the brush of it. Giving thanks to that.
Absolutely. Always have to give thanks. And, you know, it seems like, especially here in Georgia, you know, we are like, we're not even at our peak yet. I believe we still have 2 more weeks to go. So, you know, it's very crazy, but I'm so glad we're having this conversation tonight because I feel like just with us being able to stay at home and, you know, the social distancing and things like that, this is a time for people to really get together on a spiritual level and really just connect on a spiritual level and even also just do some spiritual maintenance. So
Right.
on that note, how have you been handling everything spiritually on a spiritual level?
I'll handle it by saying it, with a story, right? And I didn't do my best with it, but this is a story that I think everyone should try and get a drift of. This is a jeweler. This guy owns a jewelry store, and he had his assistant working on a piece of diamond, a big piece of diamond, and then the assistant finished the diamond and stashed it. So a couple of hours after, the person came in to pick the diamond up, and like the assistant couldn't find it. So the assistant came to the boss and said, "Boss, that piece of diamond, did you see it anywhere? Did you see it anywhere?" And the boss was like helping a customer doing something with his eye. He said, "No, I haven't seen it." Right? And then he said, "Well, keep searching." So maybe an hour after the guy comes back, he said, "Oh my goodness, boss, good man, I found it." And the boss said, "Okay, that's good." So the person who was in front of the boss said, "Wait a minute, man. This guy just came and said, he lost his diamond, and the same temperament which you had while you were working, you didn't change it. And when he came back and said he found it, you still had the same temperament." So the guy said, "What was that about?" He said, "Well, when he came and told me if he lost the diamond, I was at peace, and I was not about to leave my state of peace to go and get caught up with angst and agitation and worry. So when he came back and told me a different thing, I was still at peace."
Wow.
So there's the essence that we should try. And how can you get to that space? You get to that space with basic understanding of what's really going on around you. It's a complex but not difficult, but have a real deep understanding what's really happening, who you are in relation to what's going on around you. So that's the essence. And even though this may be something that you know intellectually, a lot of times you forget and you get caught up with that particular stream of knowledge and information that's going on, the emotions on TV, up and down, so many thousands died. And what would caution people is to, no, don't look at that stuff all the time. Don't look at it every day, because that's what well, I don't want to say they want you to, but generally speaking, you can get pulled into that. And then it's a going down the tunnel from there, rabbit tunnel from there. So just be mindful. Just be mindful.
Absolutely. And I think you said something very important, because it's you can really go down a rabbit hole when you continuously feed into all the negative, energy and stuff that you see, all the negative images and just the stats and all the things that are going on in the news. So how are you able to maintain a spiritual level despite everything that's going on? And I know you said something about knowing who you are. So like if somebody asks you that question, who are you and why isn't this affecting you on a mental and spiritual level?
Well, it's not affecting you. Well, I think I ended the show last time when I was speaking about 9 aspects of yourself, of your personality. And so it depends on which one of these personality you choose to more likely express or become prominent in your outlook, or using that as your perception. So if you want to use the lower aspect of who you are, the physical body, as your lens for perception of what you're looking at, well, you got to be responsive to what that brings, what that entails. Another analogy is like you're looking at a football game, right? American football, and you're down at the 50-yard line and you're watching the game, okay? And so then you change position and you go maybe like 5 stands up. You're looking at the same game. Your perception changes based on how you've seen that game changes, because your viewpoint changes. Now, let's say you go all the way to the top, to the skybox. Then you get a wider view of the game, and you're looking at the same game, but your understanding and your concept and your perception of what you're looking at is different.
Absolutely. Nice. Hello, everyone joining. I see you guys waving. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are ready for some gems. We're checking back in with Mr. Obel from season 2. So, Mr. Obel, I remember from the episode that we sat down and we discussed everything, and you talked about just your journey on the path that you're on now. You talked about growing up as an altar boy and things like that back in Guyana. So, kind of refresh the audience members and let them know a little bit about, maybe some of the members that haven't even tuned in to the episode that we did together. Kind of refresh everyone and tell us a little bit about that journey again.
instead of refreshing, how about let me give you some other stories?
Oh, there we go. We love your stories.
um, Something that I forgot to mention in that in the last episode was like when I was like around 13, 12, 13 years old, I started my own table tennis club, a ping pong club at where I was staying with my grandfather. In Guyana, we call it bottom. I was still living under the house. You know, the house, most of the houses in Guyana is on stilts. So under the house, you know, we had like some, you know, spaces there, and we set up 2 ping pong tables. The ping pong tables were man-made. The nets were man-made. Some of the rackets were man-made.
Wow.
But you know what, man? From that time, and a lot of people, well, in the village I grew up, we always had a lot of ping pong players. And as a matter of fact, our village had the number 2, number 3, number 4 players in the country, right? And they had a ping pong table called Helix Table Tennis Club. So where I was living was like a main thoroughfare in the village. So anybody passing through my street, they're going to the movies, they're going to the market, they're going to the library, the post office, I had to pass where I was living, right? So it was a lot of traffic. So a lot of young brothers used to be hanging out and playing table tennis. So one day, one of the guys who was number 2 in the country, his name was Keeps Galaya. He was passing, we were scared, saying, what if Keeps gonna come play with us? What if Keeps, because he's number 2 in the country, right? And we said, Keeps, come and play, man. He said, nah, it's okay, man. You know, but it so happened, the other brother who was number 3, like maybe a week or so after, came and started playing with us. And that was like, you know, like a major, like, it felt to me like I created something, because a lot of young brothers, and some of them brothers went on to be like real top-rated players in the country who were playing at my home.
Nice.
So that was kind of interesting, something that I left up, but it led up to something else. It led up to my, like a what you would call a aspect of my personality that was like people's personality, like helping people, essentially, regardless of what it is. You know, and so what I try to say is, like, in my spiritual journey is not just for me. As a matter of fact, the things that you do, it affects everything in your entire world, but we don't even recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the deeper understanding is that essentially you're not separate from me. We're the same thing. And I like to share information with analogies, simple things people can understand, right? I'm going to show you how me and you are one. We and everything is one. The plants, the animals, birds, cosmos. Let's say you go to the Chattahoochee River. We live in Atlanta, right? And you took a bucket of water. You took a bucket and then you dip in the Chattahoochee River and you put that bucket on the side of the river. The question is, what is the difference between the water in the Chattahoochee and the water in the bucket?
It's the same thing.
The only difference is quantity. But
Okay.
it has the same elements, the same essence. So I'm trying to say, regardless of what you believe in, whatever God you want to call your God is. And this is something, and I'm going to help you to understand how we can arrive here, because this is the most major thing that has happened to humanity, not just Black people.
Absolutely.
That change that made us stop looking at ourselves as divinity and looking outside of ourselves for divinity. Right? I'm not trying to knock any religion. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share what I've learned, and you don't have to accept, or, you know, you can investigate it for yourself. Right? So back in the times of Jesus the Christ, because the Christ is a title, the Christ is a state of awareness, is not a person. Jesus is a person, Christ is a consciousness. Back in those times, 2000 whatever, BC whatever, or 80, the popular thing around that time was for people to become the Christ. Unlike now, where people, they want to become football players, entertainers, popular people. But these things are very like, it's like a hamster in a treadmill. They take you nowhere. So back in those days, it was popular to become a Christ, right? So what has happened between around 2080 and between 325, when the church people came together and said, you know what, we need to establish a form of control. So we're going to change the narrative. We're going to change the narrative. And over time, we, in 2020, we are taking part in something that has an effect that happened thousands of years ago. But however, we accept these things as factual and as true. Think about it. We as African people who came through the Middle Passage, went through all of that. We lost our traditions, our customs, everything. Then something was beaten into you. Beaten into you, and now we accept it. We, the descendants, have accepted that as something that is factual and true. But because we don't do historical insight into our journey, even not just a personal journey, into the religion where you're from. Whatever religion you're in now, go and find out the source of it. Go and find out the root. Who started it, where it came from. And if you keep going back, you're going to see it leads you right back to the motherland. But what I'm saying is that even the religions of today, the people who started them, they're if you check the history and why it was started, it doesn't even relate with our experience as a people. You know what I mean? So it's like where we are, why I'm bringing this up is that we are in a state of COVID-19 where we are home. A lot of people probably utilizing the time to get on the online parties, but choose some of that time to get into you.
Absolutely. And I think that's a major key. I think that just with the stillness, I feel like the world has literally stopped, and it's such a still, calm, just peaceful, just atmosphere. And I feel like it's so important right now for us to get our mental together, not only for after COVID, but just in general in the midst of it, because we're dealing with something that is so different, something that humanity has never seen before.
Right.
So I think that right now is a very pivotal time to really just hone in and focus on building your spiritual life to getting your spiritual self together.
Okay.
Oh, I think you're back. Okay. I lost you for a second. So because of, and thank you for sharing that information with us. And I know we talked about it before, but for those that are on the live that actually missed the episode, definitely after this interview, go back and check out the first episode when we talked about his journey. But I kind of want to hear it again because it's so interesting to find out how you became who you are now in your spiritual journey. So kind of take us through that transitional period that you had when you transitioned into who you are now. Did you receive a lot of backlash? Did you receive a lot of negative feedback from your friends and family members? Did people turn their backs on you?
So you're asking me, you want me to start with some of the stories that I did in the last episode and bring it up to date with the second question, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, as with everything else, I'm not speaking from a script, so I'm just gonna have to go by memory. Just for everyone's benefit, I was born in a town called Linden, Guyana. And when I was very small, my grandmother, I went to live with my grandmother. Maybe I was less than a year old. And my grandmother, she was a librarian. And then my grandfather, he was like a factory mechanic, but he was also the village gutter-smith, tinsmith, bicycle repair guy. My grandmother as well, she was involved with it. Political party at the time. I think she was the secretary or the treasurer, and then she was involved with like the Mothers Union. She was also a seamstress. She also made wedding cakes. So I had like these different kind of people around me growing up, very talented in different ways, but they were always community oriented. My grandfather as well, he was in what you call it, the lodge, the Rosicrucian Lodge. He was in like two of them. I think his dad was a Grand Master or something like that. So I had elements of like, what you would call Eastern sciences around me. My grandmother, I can't remember if she went to church, but I know definitely she was a Baha'i. I know but the Baha'i faith came into popular in Guyana in the 70s. So I don't know prior to then what church she was going to. In my previous episode, I said she never went to church. But I'm thinking now, I don't know what she was going to prior to Baha'i coming into the country. And for those who don't know what Baha'i is a new form of religion. Well, not really new, but in the 60s and 70s, I think it was founded by a brother called Bahula, or they call it Divinity Bahula. But the scriptures are kind of based on some aspects of the Bible and some other aspects of Eastern mythology and everything else. However, my grandfather, on the other hand, he was a member of the Bethel Church, Congregational Church. And when my grandmother died, he remarried. And when he remarried, his second wife, she was Anglican. So I started going to the Anglican Church. And then ultimately became confirmed, and then I became an altar boy. But during that process, the concept of being an altar boy, it led me to being around an environment, being with close up to, you know, the hierarchy of the priesthood, and, you know, hearing conversations with them, you know, kind of stimulated my mind. However, there was one particular conversation that my father was saying to the deacon, and was telling him, you know, the things that they learn in seminary school, if they were only to come out and tell the parishioners or the congregation some of the things they learn in seminary school, people probably won't want to come to church, you know, because of, you know, how, well, maybe they had, this is my own idea, but just in these times, if you bring truth to people, it's hard for them to accept it, right? People more fall for something that is colorful or whatever it is, or something that's
comfortable, something
or
that's
comfortable, exactly, comfortable, right? So that got to lead me, and this is something I forgot to say in the other episode. While I was at the library with my grandmother, I had to be in the library every day reading different books. There was a particular series of books by a particular author, and the name was it. And I used to read this book when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old. It was a Lobsang Rampa. You can Google it now. He's still out there. The books are still there. But he was a Tibetan monk, right? He was a monk from Tibet. But the stories were true, but because of the Western not able to relate, they had to write the story in fiction, right? But there's a series of stories of this young brother growing up as a young guy in Tibet, but he had special gifts, and he could use his mind to do a lot of things like levitate spoons and hold 10,000 volts of electricity in class.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it blew my mind. So it led me to this feeling of the possibility of what the mind is, or what the mind can do. Okay. Now, fast forwarding to when I left my village, and I went to work in we would call in the interior in Guyana, we would call the jungle, where the gold mine and everything is. I was in my 20s then. I met this old captain on a ship. I was working on a company. We did logging as well as transporting the log via ship. So it was a major establishment. You had the logging facility, plus we had ships parked up ready to load up. So my department was in the shipping department, repairing and building ships, stuff like that. So they had this older guy there. We call him Old Cap. He was on a very old boat that had been there for years, and the boat would probably maybe go upstream, maybe 50 miles, come back. Never used to go far because he was old. So never used to give him a long journey. So Cap used to be there in dock most of the time. And he always liked to cook for everybody and stuff like that. So one day he was telling us, can't remember how the conversation started, but he was telling us to go upstream and pick bamboo, right? Choose any day to pick this bamboo. And then, you know, he's going to choose a day and he's going to pick his own bamboo. So we chose a day. We paddled upstream. Well, it wasn't a paddle boat. We had like oar boats. Back in it was oar boats, right? We had like we oaring going up the river. And then we went and picked the bamboo. We came back down. And then Cap said, okay, put your bamboo out on the deck. Put the bamboo out on the deck. Within a few days, the bamboo started to deteriorate, started to wither. And so Cap said, well, I'm going to go get my bamboo now. So Cap, he chose his day. He went upstream. Him alone, no one, him by himself. He went upstream, picked the bamboo, came back, put the bamboo down there, and the bamboo stayed there for eons. It didn't like nothing. So we asked Old Cap, what's the difference? And then Old Cap went on to say, well, you have to learn how to pick fruits or anything, vegetation in the season along with the cycles of the moon. And that, and they had several other things that happened, but that story there, and tied into Old Cap had like a lot of books in his cabin. And so the things that he were telling me, and being in his cabin, he found me in there one day without permission, and he hollered at me. But then he eventually allowed me to read his books. It even borrowed, but he would let me one book at a time. I had to read it and bring it back, and then he'd give me another one. You know what I mean? But that experience that me and him had, and the things that myself and him sat down and spoke about, absent from everyone else. Absent from everyone else. I mean, the conversations that we had, a young person in my 20s speaking to someone in their 70s, and someone who was locked into something very higher than my understanding. And the knowledge and information he shared with me, it was enough to set me on a journey. So why I use the example of the bamboo, because the bamboo helps me to remember the stories of what Old Cap shared with me as a young person, you know.
Okay. We're getting some questions. All right. What message do you have for everyone stuck in the house?
Oh, wow. It depends, man. It depends where you are in your life, you know. The most I can share is just give something general and hope everyone gets something from it. As I said, reflection. Learn how to tap into yourself. And this is not something, let me start from the top and come down. Let me start from the top and come. This is what I'm going to share with you. We all are powerful beings. We all are beings of light. Just that we don't know it. What we're looking for is something within you.
Absolutely.
It's not, you ain't got to go to church to find it. I'm not saying you can't go to church, but I'm saying the fulfillment of what you're going to acquire comes from within you. And this is a classic example of anything you may do in your life. Let's say you buy a red sports car. You drive down the road 100 miles per hour. You always want to do this. Where does that experience happen? Does that experience happen on the road? Does it happen in the car? Does it happen when you bought it from the dealership? Does that mean you did your donuts on? Did it happen there? That feeling that you felt, it came from within. Not something come from outside and planted and say, okay, or shall I think about this right now? No, that feeling comes from within. When you feel fear, where does that fear come from? Fear comes from you attach a thought to a particular, and with that thought, a stream of thoughts come with it. And then you create scenarios in your head and your mind what this might turn out to be. But I'm saying whatever you did, you are creating. So if you create a thought, that means you're creating the experience how you want to feel.
And how you react to it.
And how you react to it.
Yeah.
Well, the reaction comes from how you see yourself.
That's true.
Right? Because how you see yourself, that's how you're going to express yourself in life.
Very true.
Okay? And the thing is that when you look at your life, when you are 10 years old, okay? When you were 10 years old, the things that you did when you were 10, when you became 15, you didn't do it no more. Why? You didn't one day stop and say, no, I'm going to stop playing cowboys and Indians and stop playing dolly. It was a process. You stopped. When you became 20, you stopped doing the things you were doing when you were 15. So I'm saying now, when it becomes to engaging in who you are, it doesn't have an age limit. It's speaking of moving from a way of how you're seeing something to looking at it in a different way.
Yeah.
Because when you were at 10 years old and you look at that something, nobody could tell you nothing. You actually believe if Santa Claus is coming through the keyhole, that's what it is. You believed it. Right? But then when you became 15, no Santa Claus coming through no hole. So I'm using that as a reference to say the perception of how you interact or how you see your reality. What if there is something else? If there's something else that you can look and see what the world is. One more example, and then I'm going to give you an advice for what you guys can do, right? Because I'm giving the advice, but I'm leading up to it. That's how I teach.
Oh yeah,
right?
It's okay. It's okay, Mr. OL. Take your time.
I'm a storyteller. Okay, and that narrative just left me. Right, I was about to give another analogy, but in any event, right, when you start to grow in your understanding of who you are, right, and you start to internalize your experience rather than externalize it, right? Internalize your experience, you start to change within. Right? And when you start to change within, you're going to find the things that you were attached to and no longer have that pull on you. Right? Because you're realizing you're getting a different perspective of the same reality that you were interacting with when you were 20, 25, 30, 40 years old, but it's changing. So for example, now some person might go through their whole life and they become 80, 90 years old, but then they didn't have a whole perceptual awareness of their reality. This is the analogy it came back to me. We got 5 senses, right? Eyes, ear, touch, see, whatever. You know, you smart ones out there, y'all know that. Now, these 5 senses are responsible for bringing information to your mind or to your awareness, and then the mind makes sense of it, and then you respond or react it. These 5 senses, right? Now, these 5 senses can only bring the information that is available to them. What about, so what I'm trying to say now, we make decisions and on the information that we have gathered. But that information is not the totality of the reality that we live in. So for example, a dog may see or hear something, he's like, and you're like, what the hell were you listening to? And you start barking, but you can't hear that. So that means that dog is hearing something that is outside of your awareness. That if you had the capacity, which we do, but if you had the capacity to have the hearing of a dog, then when you make certain decisions, it would be different than someone who did not have the awareness of, I'm just using that as a reference. So I'm saying now that there is a wider spectrum of knowledge and information that is out there that you can hone and bring home to an understanding, and your relation to that will be different. Coming to the COVID-19. So I'm saying now, becoming full cycle, that if you change your perception of what the COVID-19 brings and represents, then your response and your reaction is going to be different. It probably won't be that agitated. All right? So what can we do? A couple of things we can do. Logic, reason, reflect. Logic. There was once a brother by the name of Les Brown. He still is around. Les Brown says, and none of us gonna get out of life alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Marinate on that for a second. None of us gonna get out of life alive.
Wow.
So when we conceptualize what COVID is, and that's why I'm saying people shouldn't get caught up in the television, because it's gonna clutter your thinking. When we think about what we're afraid of, what is the ultimate thing that COVID is going to happen with COVID, right? You can die. That's the ultimate. You can die. If you can arrive at a place where you don't have a fear for dying, what else is left? Now, how can we get to that part? Logic and reason. Logic and reason is your perception. Would anybody in this culture, this Western culture, put a bomb to themselves and go and blow up somewhere? No, we wouldn't. You know why? Because our perception of death is different to the brother over there, or wherever they are, who's going to do that. Because they have a different understanding of what death is. So that means that your perception or our perception of death is not an ultimate truth. Anything that is true has to be perennial in everything. It can't be true over here, not true over there. There are 4 things basically in life that are true, and that's the 4 elements: water, earth, sun, and air. We can look at the sun. If you're in Africa, in India, in Pakistan, we know the sun gives us warmth, sunshine. The rain falls. We know the water, we can be able to drink it. The soil, we know we can put the seed regardless of what part of the world you are. That's an ultimate truth. Anything that is not true today and is true tomorrow cannot be an ultimate truth. What I'm saying is that if we can get to a space where we can start working our perceptual awareness and really have an insight into how we look at our reality. So let me give you all some building blocks, okay? Building blocks of who we all are, right? and what is this we experience, and how to look at it in a different way. Our lives is a myth. The life that we live is a myth. Now, when I use the word myth, I'm not using it in a Western paradigm. When we say the word myth, people say, oh, it's some natural story. No. And I'm going to help you understand why it's a myth. In Eastern paradigm, what is a myth? A myth tells you three things, right? First of all, the myth is always told in a story, start from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
From sadness to happiness, from tragedy to happiness, from ignorance to wisdom. That's one part of the myth. Second part of the myth is that the myth is talking about you. And when I use the word myth, I'm also including our religious scriptures, the biblical scriptures, the Hindu Gita, the Muslim Quran, any holy book, any scripture. It's talking about you. It's not something happened thousands of years ago. You are the characters in the myth. The characters in the myth are different elements of your personality that express and relate to human experience. But our ancients, our ancestors gave them names and stories so you can have an emotional response on understanding to relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing about the myth is that for the myth to become true, it has to be lived.
Mm.
So if you're a Christian person, the story or the myth within the scriptures has to be lived, and it has to become true to you, not true to some guy 2,000 years ago or somebody coming in the future, right? And you have to be able to understand how to deal with that. Now, why I say your life is a myth, I wasn't tempted to go into the scriptures, but to help you to understand why your life is a myth. Based on the premise that I just established, right? The three components of what is a myth, that means whatever your life is happening out there, it is telling you a story about you.
Mm-hmm.
So all the different experiences you're having in life is actually telling you a story about who you are in essence. So you have like a map to look at yourself. And okay, this particular experience here, I was angry. How can I work on my anger? How can I better my anger? You see, the basic thing is we as a humanity, we don't work on those things in our personality. Mm-hmm. We accept them as a regular way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Anger, hatred, greed, jealousy, envy. If you go to any Catholic or Anglican church, they call those the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay? And in the African teaching, we call them the precepts of Ma'at. Mm. So the whole idea is for us as humanity, is for us to work to start to purify our personalities, our shortcomings. This is what life is all about.
Yeah.
So you come into a home, and I'm talking about having the understanding of reincarnation, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're speaking of here. So you come into a birth home, a parents, father and mother, and for those of you who are not relatable to the term or don't understand or don't believe, there are a whole heap of incidences of that. You can Google that, so I'm not going to go into that. When you come into this world here, you got parents, you got brothers and sisters, but I'm just dealing with in this setting here now. Whoever you are in your home, you got parents, you got brothers and sisters, you got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend. These people that you got around you are expressions of yourself. They're like reflections of yourself, so you can see yourself. So when the experiences are positive and negative, that's you coming right back at you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But intellectually, you can conceptualize it, but if you start to live your life like that, it takes on a whole different ball game.
Wow.
Because at the same time, someone who you're relating to, though they might not understand it, so you can't like show it out like that because people might want to take advantage of that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you may even get caught up in a family setting or wherever, but when the understanding comes back to you, well, this should be your perspective.
Mm.
Going back to the analogy I used, where you were 10 years old once you were 15, At 15 years, you might do something stupid, like when you were 10 years old, you say, "Oh, am I that stupid?" And you know, you come back to when you're 50. So, and it's spiritual. The spiritual life is different to religious life. The difference between a spiritual life and a religious life, not they're separate in a sense, but one goes higher than the other. Meaning that you can use a religious content to enter spirituality, if I can put it like that, right? But spirituality, what religion does, it gives you the groundwork, the footwork for you to start ascending, right? And once you get to a space of understanding whereby you are conceptualizing divinity within you, then your whole like perennial your awareness, just things just start changing, things just start looking different for you. Building blocks to assisting people. And I'm using ancient systems to help you, right? I was speaking about, you know, the myth of yourself. Now we're going to speak about the 4 components that make up anyone's personality. You got 4 aspects to your personality. And this was correlated to the 4 sides of the pyramid. If, for those who don't know me, I come from a comedic background. Well, that's my frame of reference right now. And it forever will be for now, right? But you look at the pyramid got 4 sides and then comes into a crescendo at the top. That symbol, that pyramid is symbolic of the 4 aspects of your personality that each person needs to work on. Once you start to purify the personality, the more pure it gets, the less subtle it becomes, meaning, or the less gross it becomes. So when you reach to that point, I mean, the grossness at the base of the pyramid is very gross and coagulated. The further you go to the top, it becomes less dense and more subtle. When you start working on the 4 aspects of your personality, which I'll now name, the first one is your emotions. They need to be purified, right? Then you have your willpower. Your willpower needs to be purified and reinforced. Then you have your actions. We all got actions, things that we do. That needs to be purified. Then you have your intellect. Your intellect needs to be purified. What are the 4 things to purify those 4 aspects of your personality? And I'm speaking here from a religious concept now. Forgive me for those who are atheists out there, or, you know. To purify your emotions, you use devotion. Rituals, prayers, even singing. Singing, yeah. To purify and reinforce the mind, you use meditation. Okay? To purify one's actions, you use the precepts of Ma'at. You got 42 precepts and you judge yourself. Unlike in Christianity, Christian says, "Thou shalt not steal." When you see, language is important, as we mentioned in the last. Language is important.
The last one.
If I say, "Thou shalt not steal," it sounds like somebody is talking to me. No, it sounds like, yeah, somebody's talking to me. But if I say, "I have not stolen," is a difference in context and in language. That means you are affirming. You're affirming it to yourself.
To yourself, yes.
Not someone is telling you that. Okay? So now, when you have these precepts to purify the emotion, to purify your actions, then the final aspect of your personality, which is your intellect, you use wisdom to purify the intellect. And where can you get these things from? Anywhere and everywhere. However, I would, for someone who's a seeker, who would intend to become a seeker, I've dabbled in many things until you set to something that is, you know, conducive with one's personality. So I read a lot of things on different things, but you know what? All of them are essentially telling you the same thing. You know, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, but it can only tell you the same thing if you have the in-depth understanding of what you are reading. So when you get to the higher height of, instead of being at the bottom, when you get to the higher height of what they're coming from, what they're talking about, is something that we all can relate with. And the whole understanding is that we are the essence of God. You weren't born, you haven't been born, so you can't die. I mean, I'm saying that, but probably might not be helpful to anyone. But just to let you know the height to where your perceptual awareness can go to, rather than accepting that you are just this physical body. Can be. If,
No.
if you apply logic and reason, right? You apply logic and reason. What wakes you up in the morning? What keeps your heart beating? What makes your lungs keep breathing? What are these little nerves running around all over your DNA molecules? What is controlling that? And why was I created with this such an intricate system just to come into the world, to born, go to college, marry, have kids, and die? No.
It has to be more than that.
We got I once read a brother who said this is the most intricate machine ever built. But we don't take the time to study it.
Wow.
Simple things like your saliva. People walk and they spit, and what is the purpose of your saliva? What does your saliva do? Why did the creator give us saliva?
Wow.
What is the purpose of your salivary glands? Just to share some information, the purpose of your saliva, before you eat, you need to accumulate some saliva and you swallow it. What a salivary gland does, it starts to, I hope doctors out there, but it activates enzymes within the digestive tract to let the tract prepare for food that is coming down. Simple thing like the salivary glands. So like when you put a spoon of food in your mouth, okay, there's something people can do at home, practically speaking. Learn to eat properly.
That's step one.
Step one, right? Why you want to learn to eat properly? Because it's the foundation of health. How you eat and what you eat. Foundation of health. You can put something pure into something that is so corrupt. Physically, if you want to bring forth the essence of who you are, bring it into something that is healthy, so you can, feel free. Not many running into this, running into that. I'm just using those terms there. However, when we start to incorporate dietary guidelines in our life, back in the day, I used to force my family to not eat meat, but then everybody's not ready at the same time. But the thing that can help people, if, for example, we in this coronavirus thing, and there's a lot of things that we got to do without. Look up to your sisters, y'all can't go to the hair salon, the nail salon, all that stuff you're making do. So that goes to show you can do without certain things. So people can't wait for the salon open, they rush back out here, right? But that's okay. I'm saying is that we can do without certain elements in our diet right now because we're doing without it. Right? You know what made me stop eating meat? Education. Someone telling you something that made sense to you. And the thing is, a lot of us know it, but we have something called cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but once something makes sense to you and your intuition is telling you very strongly to don't partake. And for me, stop eating meat. I come from a meat source. My grandfather used to have pigs. We used to kill pigs for Christmas and all that stuff. I come from that. So it's not like I'm telling you something that, so first thing is the meat that we eat in present day is not the same as we used to eat back in the Caribbean, even back years ago in America. The meat we eat, we don't know which country it's coming from. That's the first thing. We don't know how long it took to get to the size it got to. So, and then we incorporate the enzymes that secretes into the meat when the animal is killed in a very not right way, decent way, right? So we incorporate these things in our diet, and then these things start acting up within the human personality, in different ways, in anger and domestic violence, this, that, and then we getting sick and we can't figure where it's coming from. That's one thing. If we care about our planet, and the thing is that it goes back to the concept of our separation within our reality. We see, okay, those over there, those black, those white, we see separation, but we don't see unity, we don't see unification. And if we start to understand the actions, you see a lot of this COVID-19 thing that's happening here now, and a lot of the 5G that's happening right now.
That's a whole nother conversation. We may need another hour for that.
Let me say this, and it ties into diet, because a lot of it, we got to blame ourselves.
Absolutely.
Especially the 5G. Because we are feeding into that radioactive frequency when we use certain things in our homes. For example, like the microwave. We are contributing to that radioactive frequency when we use a microwave.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? They tell you, well, try not to, sleep with, your phone close to your bed head. If you're going to do that, put it on airplane mode. We can play a part in cutting down on the situation that we find ourselves in. But we ourselves, we are into whatever industry. We are consumers. We don't innovate. We are consumers. And so for you to bring a balance in your life, we have to have the capacity to let go.
Absolutely.
And a lot of us are not ready to let go. We still want to keep up the status quo, but then we want something, you want your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are the ones who are going to have to heal ourselves as individuals, as families, and as communities. We are going through a shift in human consciousness as we speak. Where you see expressing in the world as the COVID-19 and the pandemic, nothing in the world can happen without it coming from we would call a spiritual source. Things happen in spirit before it manifests in the physical, right? And so what we're experiencing here is a shift in consciousness. And some of us going to be caught up with it, and some of us going to be left behind.
Yeah. And
because
I think it's right now is such a pivotal time to really just, like you said, just stay within that shift, because of the shift that's happening. If we get left behind, we get left behind. But I think right now it's so important that we really just spend this time and just connect back with ourselves, connect back to whatever source we believe in, the universe, God, whatever it is. And I think it's so important. But Mr. Obael, I hate to cut this conversation short because you dropped so many gems tonight, but Instagram is actually getting ready to kick us off. So we have to bring you
Simple exercise quickly. Observe your breath. Sit down quietly, observe your breath going through the nostrils. When you find your mind drifting away from it, bring your mind back, feel the air going through your nostrils. Keep on doing that every day, 5 minutes every day, and you're going to start building in a relationship with yourself.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Obael. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I'm so sorry we have to cut this short, but we promised, because of where we left off, we have to bring you back for a third part again. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for everyone tuning in, and have a great Friday night and a great weekend.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being live.
Good night, everyone.
Night.